Most of us are taught that avoiding fights, keeping the peace, and accommodating others makes us good people. But if you look closely at how the world actually operates, constantly shrinking away from conflict doesn't make you virtuous, it just makes you harmless. From childhood, society programs us with what psychologists call the nice slave identity. We are conditioned to apologize when we aren't wrong, to put everyone else's needs before our own, and to view our own submission as a form of kindness. But this constant niceness is rarely genuine. It is a performance, a false self, built entirely on an intense fear of conflict and a desperate craving for external approval. We wear this false self thinking it will protect us from difficult people. In reality, performing harmlessness acts as a broadcast signal. It tells anyone paying attention that you do not respect your own limits. This diagram shows the exact mechanics of psychological exploitation. Manipulators look for highly agreeable targets who offer zero resistance. When a person is constantly nice, the manipulator recognizes a system where they can extract time, energy, and resources with zero consequences. But watch what happens when we introduce friction. The moment the target erects a firm boundary, the extraction path fails. Manipulators operate strictly on the path of least resistance. When they encounter real pushback, their attention immediately diverts to easier prey. Machiavelli observed this dynamic over 5 centuries ago. He warned that a ruler who relies solely on unconditional kindness will inevitably be hollowed out by those actively seeking power. A person who is kind without conditions always becomes a puppet. Later, psychoanalyst Carl Jung identified why playing the harmless puppet is so damaging to the human psyche. He introduced the concept of the shadow. The dark, aggressive traits we repress to fit into polite society do not vanish. They are simply driven underground. This creates a brutal paradox. You cannot survive the darker elements of human nature by hiding behind harmlessness. To stop being prey, you have to intentionally integrate the exact traits society demands you suppress. Think of the Jungian shadow as a psychological vault. It holds all your repressed human drives, your capacity for anger, your raw ambition, your deepest selfishness, and your potential for physical or emotional force. Keeping this vault locked to maintain a polite facade is incredibly dangerous. Suppressed traits inevitably leak out as bitter passive aggression or explode as unhinged rage, and an emotionally reactive person is a highly predictable, easily controlled person. To integrate the shadow safely, we have to look at the math of human behavior. This visualization maps the difference between violence and aggression. Violence appears as chaotic, omnidirectional force vectors. It is destruction for the sake of harm. Aggression, however, is a single, highly focused vector of forward momentum. Aggression is the energetic force required to hold a boundary. It is the steady, unyielding pressure of someone who looks a threat in the eye and says a firm, final no. Possessing this aggression does not make you evil. It is the absolute prerequisite for maintaining personal sovereignty in a world that will test your limits every single day. There's an old philosophical metaphor that captures this perfectly. It is better to be a monster in a garden than a gardener in a war. If you lack the capacity to cause destruction, if you cannot push back when challenged, your kindness is not a virtuous choice. It is just the only option available to you. You are kind because you are weak. The person who commands actual respect governs their inner monster through a process called emotional compression. They feel the massive spike of anger in their chest, but they refuse to let the depth of that feeling determine the size of their reaction. They do this by practicing manufactured delay. When a trigger hits, the sovereign mind places a deliberate, calculated pause between the event and the response. In that split second of silence, they stop viewing the provocation as an emotional insult and process it as a structural problem to be solved. Authentic virtue only exists when you possess the absolute capacity for destruction, combined with the iron discipline to keep that power sheathed. Once you integrate your shadow, the external dynamics of your life shift immediately. Your boundaries finally carry weight because people realize your words are backed by the willingness to enforce actual consequences. Humans are deeply wired to read energy. They subconsciously sense when you are fully capable of walking away or going cold. You never have to raise your voice to command respect. Your contained capacity for force does the work for you. The desperate need for everyone's approval dies. When someone tests you, you simply withhold your warmth. You aren't being cruel. You are executing an architectural defense of your own peace. Access to you becomes a privilege, not a given. The habit of over-explaining yourself becomes completely obsolete. Every time you frantically justify your choices, you hand over leverage. By choosing silence, you become unreadable. Your lack of reaction acts as an impenetrable shield against disrespect. You achieve complete emotional autonomy. By remaining calm and entirely unpredictable, you make yourself structurally impossible to manipulate. It is time to discard the nice slave identity permanently. Stop performing harmlessness, and stop apologizing for wanting power over your own life. You do not become dangerous and cold-blooded so you can abuse the world. You do it to guarantee, with absolute certainty, that the world can never abuse you again. Embrace the hidden monster inside you. Enforce your boundaries with ruthless consistency, and govern your mind with cold, Machiavellian calculation. True goodness is not born from compliance. It requires immense strength. The ultimate victory is not staying safe. It is transforming yourself into an undeniable, untouchable force.